Hi, my name is Michael Armis, and this is my presentation for Kinesiology 570 on my research proposal on the effects of creatine on repeated sprint ability in college soccer players. So over the course of this presentation, I'm going to be giving a brief overview about the problem and purpose of my study. I'm going to be discussing a little bit of the literature, and I'm going to be covering the methods used in this research proposal. So in this brief introduction, when discussing creatine repeated sprint ability involving soccer players, creatine supplementation has essentially improved performance in many soccer players, according to Yanez, and it's been shown to improve repeated sprint ability, RSA, jump performance, which is very important in heading the ball and winning important corners, and improving endurance over the longevity, essentially the duration of the game. Another thing that I'd like to address in this introduction is that certain research has gone on to not only test the effects of creatine, but at times has only gone on to test it over a very short period of time. In my study, I want to present it over the course of 20 weeks, whereas in other research, such as the research by Cox in 2002, that only went on for the course of 13 weeks and still proved to be beneficial to female soccer players. So when addressing some of the problems that go on with creatine supplementation and RSA capabilities is we need to take a look at the components of what makes the game of soccer what it is. According to Bangsbo in 2007, in a game of soccer that lasts 90 minutes, there's approximately anywhere from about 150 to 250 bouts of high intensity work that goes on during the game. Many of those pertain to sprinting, jumping, um, essentially running to win the ball at a very high intensity, running to defend somebody at a very high intensity. Also, another one of the problems that needs to be addressed when looking at RSA and creatine in soccer is that there's not much research that goes into investigating the prolonged use of creatine. And this is especially important because uh, when addressing RSA, the main energy system that is at focus is the ATP PCR system. And when doing these repeated sprints, it primarily depletes PCR content, and as a result, there's metabolic byproducts that essentially affect performance and inhibit a soccer player to continually keep sprinting. So one of the main research questions that I want to ask over the course of this study is essentially, is there a difference in repeated sprint ability, vertical jump performance, and dribbling performance when implementing creatine over a 3-month period, which is essentially the duration of a collegiate season that starts in August and potentially ending in December. So the purpose of my study, of this study, is to investigate the effects of creatine monohydrate supplementation on male collegiate soccer players over the course of a competitive soccer season lasting from approximately August until December. The significance of this study is very important when discussing and examining soccer players and their ability to perform repeated sprints over the course of a game. Obviously, because over the course of the game, players become fatigued, and in the crucial moments of goal scoring, defending, etc., it needs to be at such a high intensity because if one is fatigued, they're not going to be able to perform at that high intensity to change those game changing moments, such as defending or goal scoring, running to win that last ball, going 1v1 with the goalkeeper. Also, using creatine during RSA activities will allow soccer players to essentially recover faster during match play because their ATP PCR stores are not going to be as depleted because they're going to actually be loaded while consuming the creatine, and they are also going to be able to maintain the power output while they're performing their exercises, sprinting, and being able to outrun an opponent. A few of the delimitations that are going to be involved in this study are that the subjects are going to be collegiate athletes, they're going to be males, and they're going to have to be adhering to the training program that is being incorporated by the strength and conditioning coach at the university. Some of the limitations to the study is going to be individual performance characteristics. So, such as uncontrolled variables, some players might have more strength than others. Some players might have experience doing these battery tests, such as the counter movement, jump, and RSA testing. The assumptions that we're going to make in this study is that all the athletes are going to comply with the training protocol, that they're going to train with the exact training program that the strength and conditioning coach has set up and put in place. And the other assumption that we're going to make is that all the athletes are not going to be taking any other ergogenic aids other than creatine during the duration of this study. The hypothesis that I'm going to make during this study is that participants will increase their repeated sprint ability performance over the course of the 3-month period. So one of the most important questions we might be asking is, what defines repeated sprint ability? According to Rodriguez and Fernandez in 2018, repeated sprint ability is the ability to execute multiple sprints that are short in duration with minimal recovery time. So that relates to a soccer game in a sense that a soccer player runs to go get the ball, wins the ball, passes the ball off, then he gets to rest. That same exact action is going to occur in the next instance, whoever it is that decides to receive the ball, whoever that pass is intended to. The next definition that we're going to look at is creatine and its function in repeated sprint ability and its effect that it has. So according to Barber in 2013, creatine is essentially a widely used ergogenic aid that's used in team sports such as soccer, and it's used to enhance high intensity bouts. So we're talking sprints, jumping, and it's also been shown to increase performance and delay fatigue during intermittent sprints, another component that's widely involved in soccer as well. So in the literature review, we examined the relevance of repeated sprint ability in soccer, and its relation to soccer is, according to Moore in 2003, sprinting accounts for 1.4% of the match duration. Now, how exactly does that affect the game? Well, in specific moments that are most important that we've been discussing, such as running one-on-one to shoot, running to defend a player that has the ball in a goal-scoring opportunity, are very important moments during the match, and that is a time when a player needs to have full capability in order to play at the highest performance that he possibly can during that point in the match. And in terms of its effect on fatigue, after every sprint, according to Gerard in 2011, after every sprint that is performed, there's a negative effect on maximal speed and maximal power from the first initial sprint. So essentially, a soccer player, after the first sprint he performs, begins to decline in performance, therefore the rest of the match. Also in the literature review, we take a look at creatine, and according to Yanez in 2017, when supplementing with creatine monohydrate, this increased players' short sprint ability, their jump performance, and increased agility. These are all vital components to a soccer game, as a player needs to be able to sprint short distances. They need to be able to jump to win headers off of goal kicks and throw-ins, and more importantly, corner kicks, defending and attacking, and increased agility. Are they going to be able to be agile enough to go win the ball? Are they going to be agile enough to move in a very tight space and in a very quick manner? Also, when supplementing with creatine, according to Gerard, it allows for more force to be rapidly produced. So essentially, it's going to target the ATP PCR system, and in doing so, it's going to allow for more cross bridges to occur, so that there's going to be a greater force potential when exercising, essentially, or sprinting. It's going to allow a player to contract those muscles and drive into the ground more forcefully, produce more forceful runs, more forceful sprints, essentially possibly outrun an opponent. in a 1v1 race to win the ball or, again, score a goal. In some of the literature that we reviewed, we examined what essentially makes up a soccer game. And according to Shalfawi, acceleration, deacceleration, maximal speed over short distances every 60 to 90 seconds is a major component of the game. So essentially, a soccer player is going to be accelerating to go win the ball. He's going to be deaccelerating, possibly to go defend somebody who has the ball. He's going to be using maximal speed when he's sprinting to go 1v1 with someone, and it's going to be over short distances. Again, that's what makes up the game. Also, according to Shalfawi in 2012, sprint distances essentially make up 1 to 11% of the match, which is fairly a big portion of the match. It doesn't seem like it is, but 11% of the match, if you think about it, the most important moments of the game are the goal scoring opportunities in which players are trying their hardest to outrun an opponent. They're trying their hardest to pick up speed, to beat an opponent, to kick the ball in the back of the net. So that 11% is very important, especially when looking at what goes into that 11% and what type of energy systems are in place while that is going on. Our hypothesis, again, our participants, our male collegiate soccer players will be able to increase their repeated sprint ability performance over the course of the 3-month period. The methods that we're going to use during this research project is we're going to be using experimental design, and we're going to essentially break the soccer team into half. The team will essentially be anywhere from 22 to 24 players, depending on the roster size. And we're going to split the team into 2 groups, basically a creatine group versus a non-creatine group, or if you will, a treatment group versus a control group. The participants in this study are going to be aged 17 to 21. They're going to be collegiate athletes participating in the NCAA, and they're going to possess advanced skills in dribbling, jumping, power exercises that is required essentially at the collegiate level. The way we're going to go about recruiting these players or these participants for this study is we're first going to send out requests to various universities and colleges within the Los Angeles area. And before beginning the study, we're going to hopefully attempt to get consent from the coach and the university before we begin the study. So during our study, we're going to be using the newest Power Timer 300 series. And according to Inoxen in 2009, this series is considered to be extremely reliable. We're going to be using this during our Bangsbo sprint test, in which the subjects are essentially going to be participating a series of sprints over the course of 34 meters. And while they perform, they're going to be doing 7 consecutive sprints. And so the way that this power series is going to work is that during each sprint, the subject's start time will commence as soon as they start, and it will stop recording time when they cross the finish line. And so we're going to use this instrument in week 1, week 10, and week 20. Also, we're going to be using the T-Force system that is considered to be reliable, again, by Lopez in 2014. And so this T-Force system is going to be equipped to a Smith machine, and what it's going to do is it's going to measure the power output and speed during the concentric phase of a squat. And so what the subjects are going to do, they're going to perform around 4 squats starting at 20, then 30, and then 40 kilograms, and performing a jump movement. And so what is going to happen is this test or this device is going to record the power for every single squat when they jump up and perform that kind of movement jump. So when discussing the procedures of this study, the study will be submitted to the university's institutional review board for full review. Also, a power analysis will be conducted in order to determine the minimum sample size during the study. Some of the continued procedures that are going to be going on during this study is once we attain consent from the participants, their information is going to be stored on a computer and protected by a password that is only in possession of the top researcher that is heading the investigation, which would be myself. We're going to use random selection to choose the two groups when we split the two teams, when we split the team into two groups, essentially. And what we're going to do is how we're going to separate them into the computer for data analysis, essentially, is we're going to label the treatment group that is taking the creatine monohydrate supplement as the treatment one. So the first participant will be treatment one, T1, and the person in the control group, control one, they will just be C1 as we label them for data. So the way the testing is going to work, we're going to do initial testing during week 1 with no supplementation. So the players are going to come in as they are. And then as we get to week 10 and week 20, the players will have already been supplementing for 19 weeks. And what's going to happen is the groups will consume their creatine supplementation. That will be the treatment group. And the control group will be taking their placebo. And the way this is going to work is after their resistance training that they do with their strength and conditioning coach, the two groups will line up in their designated lines and consume the supplement or the placebo right after training. And so, for example, with the treatment group, they will be going through a loading phase for about 1 week, which is going to be around 20 grams a day. And during the maintenance phase, after they get past the loading phase, they're going to be doing 4 grams a day for around 20 weeks. During our procedures as well, data entry will be recorded and transferred to SPSS version 13.0 for Macintosh. In summary, this study is going to last 20 weeks. We're going to split a collegiate team into two groups, a treatment group and a control group, in which the treatment group is going to consume creatine for approximately 19 weeks and then test the first 10th and 20th week. We're going to be testing the repeated sprint ability and counter movement jump performance in these soccer players in hope that their repeated sprint ability increases and therefore their performance during competition and game activity increases as well. This is the reference list used for my presentation for this KIN 570 project. My name is Michael Armis. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time for watching my video.